Welcome to the features video for 0816. Sorry it's been a while, but we have been furiously coding. One of the first things you'll see is at the bottom of the full character sheet, we now have these navigation buttons. If you have a really large character sheet, you can click one of these buttons and it'll make certain that that section scrolls to the top of the page. If you're old school like me, you can just close this and use your mouse wheel. There's a system setting that allows you to turn this on and off. And once again, Nick has done some really cool work with the damage calculator. Bog here has somehow picked up a boomstick.
Yeah. All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up. See this? This is my boomstick!
And he's going to shoot it. You can see in the chat log, it shows the total possible hits based on the rate of fire and recoil and the margin of success. In this case, Bog could hit twice. So GURPS says to save time, just roll the damage once and apply it twice, which we can do. One of our new features will hopefully save the GM some time. If the player targets the opponent they're fighting and then they roll damage, the damage chat will show this button, Apply All to Fire Elemental, only to the GM. It saves the GM time trying to figure out which opponent is being hit, especially if you have like 6 goblins. So you have a few ways of applying this damage twice to the fire elemental. You can just apply the damage and keep the window open, and then do it again. Or you can use the new nifty multiply and just say, I want to do this 2 times. But you could also just roll the damage twice. If you right mouse click on any damage, this dialog will appear. In here, you put in the number of rolls that you expect, which comes from the calculation on your attack, on how well you did and what's your rate of fire maximum. And you make multiple rolls. You can see there are 2 damage rolls, and you can expand to see the dice that were rolled. And you can drag them individually to the target, or you can drag the all damage to the target, or you can just press the button if they had it targeted. And now you see the multi-damage version of the damage calculator. Across the bottom, it shows you the sum of the damage for each roll. And if you want to see how these sums were calculated, at the top, you can select each dice roll. Now this is still 1 damage, so all of the modifiers are for all dice rolls. And if you're happy with everything, you can apply the injury. And if you play with the shotgun multiple projectiles rules, we now support that. You enter in your rate of fire multiplier, and we do the math. And finally, we added a system setting so you can restrict the damage calculator to only GMs. With the release of GCS 4.28 and Master Library 2.9, we now support the uses and max uses columns for equipment. We now support Unicode characters for on-the-fly parsing, which is good because those used to really mess us up. And now we support skills based on alternate attributes. So in this case, carousing based on IQ, which is not Bog's strong point, or intimidation based on strength, which is. And you can see in the chat messages, it says IQ-based carousing and strength-based intimidation. And then we added something we call conditional text. You can tell we're programmers. Put a question mark after an attribute or skill check, and if the player successfully makes the roll, the first string will be whispered to them. And if they fail the roll, the optional second string will be whispered to them. But they don't get to see the strings beforehand. It looks like this. And of course, you can combine these features. You may remember in a previous feature video, we showed how you can set up an on-the-fly formula so that it will test each of these skills or attributes to find the best one for that character and roll it. So this formula checks to see if the character has survival, and if so, rolls it at a -1, but based on IQ. Or if they have area knowledge, it's on a -2 because they're a non-resident. Or it's just against their IQ at a -5 because they're unfamiliar with the area. So this takes that previous roll, but then if they succeed on their survival roll, it will tell them that it reminds them of something. But if they succeed on their area knowledge roll, it'll say, this place looks familiar. If, however, they're forced to make an IQ roll, if they succeed, it'll say, wait, you remember something. But if you fail, it'll say, now what is everybody scratching their heads about? But to the players, it just looks like this. Here's everyone's roll. You may notice that the whisper text may appear before the roll, and then the roll gets inserted in the correct order. That's because we're using the Dice So Nice module. We've added a whole bunch of new chat commands. Note, if you used the everyone command previously, we had to change the order of the parameters to match up with all the new commands we've just created. The first command is show MBS, show modifier buckets. This is currently open to everybody, but will probably be most useful to the GM. The second command we updated was the send modifier bucket command. You can now just pass it an on-the-fly formula, and it will send this to all your players. Of course, with the feature where you can add modifiers using the ampersand, we can now send multiple modifiers to all of our players in one command like this. And of course, you can see that result with the show MBS. You can update the selected player's fatigue points and hit points by typing /FP and then giving it some formula. You can subtract 1, you can add 1, you can just set it equal to a value, or you can reset it. This works the same for hit points. You can do the same for the various resource trackers. Instead of giving it a number, if your resource tracker has a name, you can identify it by name. You can use the /QTY command to change the quantity of your equipment. There is no reset with quantity because we don't know what the maximum is, but you can just set it to a value with equals. And if you have items that have the same name but are in different locations, in this case arrows, Honest Abe has 15 arrows in the shoulder quiver that he is carrying, and 76 arrows in the small backpack on his other equipment. So to remove one of the arrows from the something quiver, you just put a / in between, and it'll find something that matches * quiver /arrow. So this should subtract something from the shoulder quiver. And of course, you know me, I love the on-the-fly formulas. Well, since an on-the-fly formula can call a chat command, I've now put a button in his balanced longbow attack that subtracts 1 quiver arrow. So every time he makes an attack, he can then press this button, and that will remove one of the arrows from his inventory. Okay, this next feature is super geeky. You can combine 2 chat commands on the same line by using double \. And you might be thinking to yourself, when am I ever going to use that? Well, here, Honest Abe has set up an on-the-fly formula that adds 12 arrows to his shoulder quiver and takes away 12 arrows from the backpack. And with 1 press of the button, he can reload his shoulder quiver. And remember the new uses column? Well, now there's a chat command that can set uses. You can add, oh right, if you try to increase above the max uses, it won't let you and it'll warn you. But you can just set it to any value that you want. You can now turn statuses on and off, or toggle, using a chat command. We'll select the party, and we'll toggle prone. They are all now prone. Or we can just turn off statuses. You can use the @self parameter to just change the status for the currently active character, which you can see here above the modifier bucket. It matches either on the status name or its underlying symbol. So in the case of Shocked 1 through 4, they're all called Shocked, but you can access them by using their ID, Shock 1 through 4. And if you have multiple tokens selected and you just want to affect the current actor, and then you can just add the @self parameter and apply it just to yourself. This feature is for our Discord users out there. If you just need to roll against a number, you can use the Discord form .ra, roll against the number 13. Or if you want to roll against a skill, of course you may be used to typing slashes, so it also works as a slash command. And if you want to make the roll private, just make it a PRA. You may have noticed how the hit points and the fatigue points show you the various boundaries, but now you can actually set those boundaries. If Bog is reeling, you can click this little heart icon and it will turn on reeling, which will have is move and dodge. You'll see a notice in the chat log, and Bog's old heart is beating. Same goes true for fatigue. You can enable or disable tired. Tired affects move and dodge, but also strength. Of course, you can turn these off. Those symbols also appear in the combat tracker, but they're only viewable by the GM. You wouldn't want your players to know when your fire elemental is reeling. Come on, you want to scare them somewhat. And you can turn the statuses on or off from the combat tracker also. And I know I shouldn't have, but I created a system setting to automatically set reeling and tired. As your character crosses these boundaries, they get turned on. So using one of the new chat commands, I'll just set Boggs' fatigue to 1, and he's automatically tired. And you're whispered in the chat. Or I'll reset his fatigue, and it's turned back off again. The last feature isn't as cool, but now when you bring up an NPC sheet, you can double-click on any of the entries and edit them, which of course means you can add on-the-fly formulas, or change values that you didn't get correct. Now, even though the NPC doesn't show the little heart icons, it's still susceptible to being tired and reeling. Oh yeah, and since we weren't certain what uses might be used for, you don't have to set it to a number. In this case, I'll set his two-handed great axe to being lucky. And of course, we fixed a lot of bugs. There are like 15 more after this list. I just got tired of typing them up. We hope you enjoy the new features. And as always, thank you for watching.